MMA Roadshow, episode number 482. My name is John Morgan, and Cold Coffee is with me on a big week of MMA action taking place around the globe. PFL and Bellator on consecutive nights on two different continents, the UFCs in Saudi Arabia, all as we head into International Fight Week. And we are just hanging out in Las Vegas,
I like
baby.
it. Let the promotions go on the road this week.
I know.
We're just gonna sit at home. This is the MMA couch show this weekend. I like it.
I take it, man. I had that stretch. I just wrapped up my stretch. It was supposed to be 5 consecutive weeks of travel. Skipped the one to get caught up on some stuff, and so it ended up being 4 or 5 weeks. But yeah, I'm actually. It's nice to be home for a little bit. You know what I mean? Luckily, the trips that I take aren't as long now. They're not the full week like they used to be.
Yeah.
You know, I usually leave like Thursday, coming back on Sunday.
Those back-to-back weeks.
But yeah, it's just
like,
you know what I mean.
It's
It's
rough.
unpacking, repacking, and trying to get your family set up, and I'm trying to make sure everything's good. And my kid's out of school, and I feel bad that I'm missing days. So I don't know. It's just it's nice to be home. It's as excited as I am to take in all of this, and as much as I would love to be cage side because I love those cage side seats, it sure is nice to be able just to watch this one from the couch and early morning too on Saturday. I love that.
Yeah.
9 a.m. start on the USC event. I mean,
God,
can't
delicious.
beat
That's
that.
awesome.
Can't beat that.
Coffee and some ground grappling and some faces getting busted.
It makes it sound really normal, right?
I know.
Oh, yeah. Love to see dudes bleeding.
Violence
Violence.
the first thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning, violence.
What's crazy is, speaking of travel, I don't know if you saw on Oscar's post, Oscar's luggage didn't make it
I
over
was
to
gonna
Saudi.
I did see that on IG. That I guess when he landed, he got a note that they wouldn't.
They're like his luggage just didn't make the transit over or something. I'm not sure what that's going to be. So like,
have you talked to him? What the update
he sent
is?
me a picture because he sent me a picture from the hotel gym, and so immediately I was just thinking, okay, so he bought workout clothes, so good for him, But I was teasing him. I was like, well, I guess you're gonna be free balling this week, or just wearing that underwear in and out, or something. I was joking. I was like, I think that's the custom over there. They just free ball under those robes. I was like, you're fine. Just embrace it. Just embrace it.
Yeah, shout out to Oscar Willis, our man Hot T. He's the one putting in those miles these days. I was just looking at the weather over there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where the UFC is. The high every day is 115 with the low down to 87.
Holy cow. Luckily, he said he had his gear, so that's one of the things, and I know I do it that way, and I'm pretty sure you do it the same way. I know you never really try to check the bag.
Tip for traveling pros, man. Keep your gear with you.
Keep your gear inside with you inside the plane. Don't if for some reason you're forced to check it. It's like a gut check for me. I get sick to my stomach. I'm just like, I'll fight it tooth and nail. I'm like, this is my camera gear. It has to be with me. Blah blah blah. For shit like this, like if you're gonna travel however long that flight is, and you're going to get over there, and then you need to be able to work the next day, and they're like, well, sorry your luggage didn't make it. How do you justify that?
You can't.
Work,
it happened to me once, so it was funny because I just wanted to pull up the card. Remember, it was Elite XC in 2008, Stockton, California, and I mean, really not a long travel. That would have been before I moved to Las Vegas, because I moved to Las Vegas in November of 2008. So this would have been me coming from Ohio. So I did travel from Ohio to California. But they lost my bag, and so it had my camera in it.
Ouch.
And so I was there, and I couldn't shoot anything. I couldn't record anything. I just felt utterly useless. You know what I mean? And you have an option of maybe you could go buy stuff, but again, that was the early days of Junkie, and so I didn't really have a lot of extra money.
Could just throw that corporate card down.
That's
and
right.
Just go hard.
You know what I mean? That's right. Yeah, that was the pre-Gannett days before we had the corporate card. We could throw it on. It was just like our little family-run operation. You know what I mean? So it's like I can't justify going and buying all this. So it was just such a conundrum. So yes. Travel tip for any aspiring journalists or professionals: make sure your gear is with you, because you know what? It's a hell of a lot easier to go get a fresh set of boxers than it is to get like a video camera.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny. I remember one of the trips. Maybe it was where we were. I don't know if it was we were in Australia, then we went to Japan after that or something. I remember having to wash laundry, or I remember washing my underwear in my hotel room and hanging it from a little thing. It's easy enough to do that when you have the stuff there, but it's easy enough to get clothes or whatever. But your gear, you're screwed without that. What's funny is that just your story now has came full circle, because back in 2008, you showed up to an event with no gear.
Right.
Now in 2024, when you go to the UFC events, you show up with no gear as well. It has come full circle.
Oh man, bro, can you check my back over here? I got this knife in it, man. Can somebody just yank this thing out for me, man? Just got absolutely. It's ridiculous.
I love it.
It's ridiculous.
I love it.
Listen, hey, things are different these days.
I don't. It's a baller move. I love it. I love it.
I'm just. Thanks for listening. We're done. We're done. No, we're just getting started. All right, listen, we'll talk about all this action that is unfolding this weekend. But I guess, look, man, if we're being honest, the biggest story right now is Conor McGregor, right? I mean, that's still the biggest headlines
100%.
of everything. The speculation's ended. We kind of said last week, look, it looks like it's really steering towards this direction, like it's not happening. Yeah. And then they come out and make the announcement.
After so many weeks of us saying, like, yes, we're confident it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like, why would the UFC do this? Why would they do this? Why would they do this? To finally have the shoe drop and we know what's going on, but we never really found out, like, what is this
really
injury?
Know what's going on.
It's just like there's this injury.
So it is interesting, right? Because this is a unique situation versus like other sports, right? Like in any other sport, if you had an injury, I know hockey playoffs are one where it's kind of famous. They'll say like lower body injury. Like what is that? That's like everything. You know what I mean? So like. I get that. Like in most of the other professional sports, like they have a policy, like you have to state what the reason is. I understand why in this in the sport of mixed martial arts you don't want to give your opponent a target. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're going to fight in a month, and I know that he's got a leg injury right now. Like, but this is such a unique situation too. Like, is it that same leg? Because that's the thing here. You know, man, from the beginning, there have been so many people that said Conor McGregor's never fighting again, and I have said from day one.
And now they're saying it all over again.
Well, I know. Well, I'm going to say, from the very beginning, I was the one that stood up and said, "You guys have no idea what you're talking about. This dude is different. If he sets his mind to something, he's going to do it. Period." Because we've seen it, right? We've seen this life that he's manifested for himself, and so all along, I was like, "You guys are wrong." I still feel like they're wrong. I still feel like this thing is going to get rescheduled, but I'm starting to get that creep of doubt, right? Because if it is that leg, especially, it's been a while. I mean, is a little bit longer going to make that continue? So,
and I just don't understand why you don't say that. At this point, like where's the confidence that you can just slightly rebook it just a few months later? Like, why are they so confident if it's something that's so small and it's just like, oh, we just need a little more time? I get it. It's his right to keep his privacy on what the injury is and whatnot. And like you said, if you don't want to tip your hand, but people know his leg had a massive injury. Like people are going to expect there to be some sort of ramifications or lingering effects from that. But if they're so confident to say like, this is going to happen, we're just slightly postponing it back, we're just slightly pushing it back, just say what's wrong. Like I just feel like just fess up so people have a better understanding.
Well, especially if it's not the leg, right? Like if it was a staph infection or you wouldn't even have to say it, just tweaked a joint or something. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be ways to say it because that's the question. And then
then you almost feel like because if it's not a major injury, then it's hard to justify dropping out of the press conference. Then I think they either don't want to say the real reason. If it was just because of a staph infection, it's like, bro, show up for the fucking press conference.
That's true.
No one's going to see
it.
No
one would know. You would just cover it up. It's not a photo shoot.
If you're limping, I get it.
If you're limping,
you get it. If you're banged up and you're cut up and you're whatever, and you don't want to show up with cuts, stitches, that I get.
Yeah, like a slice over the eye or something.
That
you're
sort of
try
stuff
to cover
I understand.
Yep.
But if it's just there's just some more checks we need to do on the on the legs. We're just double checking some stuff. It's just if it's, I just feel like they're dancing around because tied to the press conference. Maybe they after the fact decided that maybe we should have never agreed to do that now because it leaves these lingering things that when the eventual knowledge comes out, if it wasn't a big deal, people are going to shit on them for canceling the press conference in the first place.
That's an interesting look. That's an interesting thought.
So, but if it is just something like if you're going to say it can happen in 3 months, or I forget how long they said they pushed back. I felt like it was like 3 months or whatever. Doesn't sound like it's anything that serious that they couldn't just come out and just say, okay, hey, they're just running some final checks or whatever. And that just keeps the whole speculation of like, is it a lingering thing? I mean, if say his body's, I don't know, something that's manifesting to where doctors like, we told you this might happen after this sort of thing. This is the kind of thing where you start thinking about your career and whether you want to do it again. Maybe then I can understand where they're like, okay, let's just make sure that all the checks are done and we're really, really good to go before we let this thing go. But you would think that this much time has passed that all those sort of questions would have already been answered. No commission would have cleared them. if he wasn't all completely good to go and there wasn't some sort of thing. Didn't they say that the UFC doctors flew over to Dublin to check him out?
That's right.
So
I think that's it.
they know what's going on.
Heather Linden,
and probably Dr. D or somebody.
Yeah.
So like people know what's going on.
Right.
So I mean, that's interesting. I mean, because Heather, I mean, like she's kind of a big brains. I mean, she's like an overall, I think, practitioner that can take care of a lot of things, that understand a lot of different things. So it's not like you just say, okay, well, she, is a specialist with backs or
Right.
blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah,
blah.
you
So you can't.
point to
So
it.
you could point to a particular area where you think it is, but for them to send her over, I definitely think that they're probably trying to get the is this fighter really ready to go? So they're going to send their doctor and they're going to send their
100%.
main, person that understands the physicality, of these fighters to say whether it's going to go. So I'm glad that they did that, but it's just like, why still so many questions?
It's making me laugh because maybe I don't know why this popped in my head, but like this always makes you laugh when people hire a crisis PR specialist. Like I
Like
just
Jones
feel like
did?
if you're a crisis PR specialist, like maybe you shouldn't publicly identify yourself as a crisis PR specialist. You know what I mean? Maybe that should just be like under the surface, or there's some other way to word it. Cause
like, okay, so if this
you're
guy hired you, he's in crisis.
clearly
right
having
now?
a crisis right now. Yeah, exactly. So all right, well, so we're hopeful. I'm still remaining hopeful. Like I said, I am starting to get that little seed of doubt that I've been 100% certain. Now I'm 99% certain.
Yeah.
But that 1% it has crept in. So
I mean, I definitely think he's going to do some sort of fighting at some point.
So, all right, so
whether it's Chandler,
okay,
that's a whole nother
so
thing.
I do not know the right answer to this. So I spoke to Moicano. I was working with Moicano all week long, and then he was great. Moicano was the best.
So funny.
Man. He's so and man, honestly, I talked to him off air. I'm like, bro, it's so impressive what you're doing. This is your second language, man, and you're hosting a podcast. You're doing commentary. You're sharp. You know what I mean? He's like,
trying to be like a Bitcoin financial, like
he's the man.
cyber everything.
He is the man. So I did an interview with him because I'm doing like a weekly interview for Grind City Media. And I was like, hey, why don't we just talk? And so I was talking to him, and he was honest. He was like, look. He's like, it's easy for me to sit here and say it, you know what I mean? But, like, if I was in the situation, I don't know that it'd be that easy for me to say, because he kind of feels the same way I do, which is like, maybe you give this a couple weeks, and then at some point you got to cut bait and move on, right? But, again, that's a hard decision to make if you're in there. Now,
especially this far along.
You've already waited this long, right? You've already committed, and then why give it up? It's so
especially
hard.
If they're saying 3 months or whatever.
And you got to assume now. This is one thing. Him and I talked about this off air. He was like, "Have you heard what his contract is?" And I'm like, "No," because if it's just like if Chandler's contract is just whatever you get paid to fight, whatever it is, you know what I mean. I'm sure it's more than that, but whatever you get, if it's just whatever you get paid, I'm assuming, wouldn't you, that he has a special contract for this fight that gives him pay-per-view points because they were going to be the main event of a pay-per-view that this thing is centered around. So
I assume anybody that fights Conor in a main event or whatever
in a non-title main event, like you've got,
I would assume
you would 100%. He's a smart businessman because there's no reason you would sit around and wait this long if all you had was just your fight purse, right? Because
that might even come from just being a tough coach or something. Maybe they're like, to make somebody want to be a coach and put that extra time. Maybe there's got to be extra perks outside of just being on television.
There has to be.
There has to be.
You would not wait
stuff.
that you would not wait this long unless you had extra financial incentive, right? So even if it's not, let's say it's not points. Let's just say it's a higher fee because it was going to be Conor. It was going to be a main event. I mean, it can't just be like, oh, well, I'd make the exact same money if I fight whoever else, because you would have fought whoever else. But I understand that beating Conor can change your life to a degree, right? I mean, he's not the unbeatable force that he once was, but he's still the biggest star in the sport. So it helps you, but I don't think it helps you enough that you wait this long, right? So let's assume that there is a greater financial upside. I mean, is there a clear decision for you at this point? Wait or don't wait?
Somebody, I forget how somebody, I think maybe it was Danny Skier or somebody was pointing it out, but it was like in dollar terms, like say if you, were paid for something and you paid for it and it was $1,000 and you've been waiting for it to get delivered and waiting for it to get delivered. Like, we're so sorry, it's going to take a little bit longer, but unfortunately it's going to cost you now $1,100. It's going to cost you more. When you have that much time and that much money already invested, is that little bit more going to be the difference to where you then pull and you say, no, I'm done?
Probably not.
And in Chandler, and I think we've said this, and he's given off this vibe forever. Like, he's made his money. He could walk away from the sport at any time. What he's doing now are these fun, challenging fights for him. And Conor is the biggest pelt that is out there to put on your wall.
Yes, yes.
You're not going to find anybody in the sport bigger that's more worthy, except like a Habib, because he's the unicorn that's never coming back
Right,
to the.
he's never
coming back. So like, outside of Habib, Conor is it. So I was thinking that he wants one big last paycheck, and then he's off and he's going to be raising his family and he's going to do his things. Whether he was going to get 250 and 250 or 500 and 500 or whether it was even something bigger, the fact of having that Conor name, that's legacy.
Yes.
That's legacy
Yes.
outside of just the bank thing,
Right.
like he's made money and he'll make more money. Yes, he could go and fight, we said in the past where say you're waiting for that one big fight and then say if you can get and say you're making X amount of dollars less or whatever than
Right.
the 500,000 they might offer you for this fight. Say you're getting 150 and 150. Say you go out and fight 3 fights. You make the same amount of money that you would have been making waiting for the other one, and you're not sitting around waiting and waiting and getting older and putting your life on hold, just getting waiting around to get that final pay. I think it's partly. I think it's just the legacy. I think he wants that walk off big fight, and he's willing. And at this point, when he's put like years of his life on the line waiting, and if Conor still is seemingly playing ball and hasn't said like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm tired, the carrot's still out there. I don't see why he would stop at this point, because I honestly feel like, say if he beats Conor, if he didn't get and try to like say immediately like, hey Dana, I just took out the biggest guy, give me one more shot at the title and then I'm done. I could see him walking away after the Conor fight and just being like,
that. It's funny because I was sitting here thinking, because you're 100% right about Conor being the biggest star, but I was like, is there still something? And I was like, what other names would still be like, man, that could headline a pay-per-view even if there's no title on the line, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, Gaethje's always exciting, right?
Gaethje's always exciting.
Already fought. I'm like, what? Poirier's still a star. Already fought. And I'm like, Oliveira?
And
already fought.
Yeah. And Poirier, he's on the fence right now as well.
Yeah.
Like he needs
Poirier, I don't think, and this is no disrespect for Michael Chandler because we've been a fan of him as a person and as a fighter for years. I don't think Dustin Poirier is coming back for Michael Chandler.
No.
It's just,
I don't know who or what brings Dustin back. That's another one where it's just like he wants a lasting legacy or a moment that he can just, say, okay, that's good. And I know he said like the Conor thing is done. That fight I could see him doing one more time. But outside of that, maybe a Diaz fight or maybe something. But I just don't see.
So if you're Chandler right now, you're
waiting.
You're all in. You're just we're already here.
Especially because it's right there. What's the point of waiting 3 more months? Even if he waits 3 months and Conor's just like I'm done, then I think would probably hear Chandler say, "Well, guys, it was a great career." I don't think he fights after that point, just because he's been waiting for so long. Because then if you go back, then he's going to have to answer to everybody that says, "Why didn't you just do this a year ago?
Yep.
Why didn't you just decide to fight somebody a year ago?" Because at this point, for me, and he makes it sound like he doesn't need to fight for money.
That's what he
at
said.
This point.
He said it. He's
like, I'm good. I've done the right things. He's got businesses.
I know they had to pay him
a
a premium to stay in Bellator for a long time, right?
Yep.
He was the face of the company. He always, they paid him a premium to stay there.
Yep.
Made a good contract here. He's made a ton of bonus money, as you said, the businesses that he's got set up. So
Yep.
I believe him when he says he doesn't need to fight again.
I think we would have already seen him if he was just talking smack. Much time has passed to not have any say if this is your only job, to not have any income coming in from this long. Maybe I'm sure he got something from the Tough Show for the filming and all that kind of stuff. But if he hasn't fought at this point, I don't. Why he doesn't? He obviously doesn't need it.
I did, by the way. I have not tried his tequila. I guess I need to do that. But I loved his little social media posts. Like when the news got announced, he's just like, "Well, back on hiatus," because it's the hiatus. I thought that was great, man. I thought that was hilarious. Man, you know what? You've kind of. I think you've kind of changed my position.
I wouldn't fight anybody.
Because at first I was like, wait like a month maybe, and then you got to make a call. But you're right. Like, what other fight is there, and what are you doing it for? Like,
that's it.
So you're 100% right. There's probably a greater financial tie to this, and as you said, he's the biggest star, that the sport's ever seen. It's the one in the division. Now, granted, I said those fights that he had, Poirier, Gaethje, Oliveira, he came up short in all those. They were all great fights, and they were all fun fights. So maybe if one of those was offered to you, you would take it because you want that revenge factor.
Yeah.
But it's still not the same as fighting.
And if he loses, it almost like I think he sees in his mind, and I think any of us would think like it gives Conor an out. Because then Conor's like, you should have waited for me, a bum.
Yeah.
And now you went and you lost. Like, see you later.
Yeah, 100%.
Because now he's not giving Conor any exit. He's not giving him any fuel to pull out.
The proper thing to do as a man, and proper, I didn't mean that as a pun, but if you're Conor McGregor, and he does go fight and lose because you're stuck for another year, the right thing to do would be like, bro, I know you waited a long time and you lost. I'll still give you the fight. But it's not going to do it.
He's no way to do it.
And when I say the proper thing to do, I mean, this sport isn't about proper and right.
Yeah.
It's about what's marketable, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I would understand wholeheartedly why Conor wouldn't do that. I'm not faulting him for doing it, but that's the reality.
Yep.
Like,
you need to have two guys that are still deemed some of the best in the sport.
Got to be the most interesting, the most intriguing, and
if you're coming off a loss, like you shoot yourself in the foot. We say this every time when we admire when say champs, hop back in there and fight somebody that maybe shouldn't be, or a top contender fights the up and coming guy because nobody wants to fight that top contender, and we give him all the credit in the world because it's all risk and no reward.
Yeah, that's it.
This is for Chandler to
pick a fight. You don't lose the fight and you're like, but give him credit, guys. He didn't need to take that fight. But he did.
It's all downside it's all 100% risk for Chandler to take another fight just for pay. I'm sure it's a great paycheck on its particular own, but it's not going to have any of the extra little perks that would be from a Conor fight. And you put the risk of Conor saying like, sorry if you lost.
100%.
I would never fight if I was him. I'd be like, I'm sitting this one out.
You convinced me. I think you've convinced me. You just got to sit around, especially if what we're saying is true, that he doesn't financially need the money. I mean, who couldn't use the money? Of course, everybody, more money is great. But if he doesn't need to, you're right. There's just no other. It's the biggest thing for his career. It's the biggest thing for his legacy. It's probably the biggest paycheck available.
And how long? Say he fights him. Do you see him having a long time in the sport after this fight?
He's just here for a good time, not a long time. So no,
that's his own words.
So absolutely not. And again, dude, but look at what he accomplished. It is pretty incredible. Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier. He's only had 5 fights in the UFC, but that's who he's fought. It's crazy, but it's been. Man, it's
a murderer's row.
November 2022 was the last one, so it's coming up on 2 years. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I support him.
He has nothing left to prove in this sport. For anybody that says that would think that there's anything that he needs to prove, that he needs to stick around for some particular reason. Say if he's not going to make a run towards the belt. It's not going to happen, folks. As much as I respect and like what he does and what he's a great beacon for the sport. Like he's a wonderful role model for the sport. He's not going to be a champ again. So at this point, get your money and go enjoy your family, which I think is what his plan is. He wants to get one last big pelt on the wall, or at least make an attempt at it, and just be proud of what he's accomplished. And I think that would be it. And that would be great. He seems really ready to transition, and I think he's made peace with the fact. And that's why he's able to wait so long, that he's made peace with the fact that this fight is either going to happen or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, I guarantee he's made his peace that he's ready to walk away from this sport.
You're right. You know what? You wait. You sit around, you wait. All right. How about this argument, the UFC 303? Because
that it's a better card?
That it's a better card, right? Because look, it's so funny because, right, it's an argument you can't win. It's one you can make, right? Because now there's a title fight. And just by the fact that you have a UFC title fight on the line,
and there's like a 2-for-1. They added another fight as well.
The co-main event.
The co-main event is sick,
super intriguing, right? I'll even if we want to talk about improvements or things that I'm happy about, I'm going to say I'm happy that Jamal Hill's taking a little time off.
Yeah,
I don't.
That was a tough fight.
No disrespect to Jamal, but we were all saying, bro, chill for a little bit. You don't have to do this. You know what I mean?
That was a bad fight.
So what do you think about that argument? Because you can make the argument. Like you said, you lost one fight, you added 2. One of them is a championship fight. But just by argument alone, it's a more meaningful fight because it's a title on the line.
Yeah.
That co-main event is incredibly intriguing.
They're able to swap out the poster. All they did just superimpose two other people underneath that yellow banner. And
Perfect.
they're just like, hey,
Perfect.
here we go. In fact, if you zoom in really, really close, you can still see them underneath their faces.
Just
They
put it right on
just
top.
put it right
They
on
didn't
top
even
of it.
forgot to delete that layer. Let's just slide them right on top of it. So what do you think about the argument? Because I think it's an impossible argument to make. I think if you in a vacuum, if you don't talk, if you just talk, if there was some kind of like card quality rating that was like based on what rank everybody is and what impact it had in the division and all that, if there was a way to measure it like that, I think you could say it is a better card.
Yeah.
But anytime Conor McGregor is involved in something,
Yeah.
like you can't even.
I mean, it was a Conor McGregor card.
That's it.
People wanted to see Conor.
The attention, how much? Hey, we've seen it. Friends of ours, and how much media has canceled and isn't coming to Las Vegas anymore because Conor's not in there, and it's still International Fight Week, and it's still a big card. But there's a lot of media that said, "Nah, we're not. You know what? We're not making that trip."
Yeah, I mean, there's still decent amount of international flavor on the card, but that was a Conor card that people wanted to see in International Fight Week. This is it feels like a whole different card, but this card is.
It's a really good card.
It's a really good card.
It's
I mean, like you said, there's a title fight. People want to see this fight happen. The Ortega-Lopez, I mean, like, people have been high on Diego Lopez for a while. I mean, who hasn't thought Brian Ortega's always been, like, champ material? So, I mean.
It's a great fight.
You know, I mean, like, that fight is just such an incredible addition. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's like, bro, if you knew that you could throw that on there, you could have threw that on there before. Why wasn't it on there? But, like, it certainly helped ease the pain. If somebody was like, okay, you know, I really want to see this Conor thing. And they're like, okay, we'll give you Alex Behan. We give you Geary. You know, I can see where somebody's like, that's still not enough for my money. That's still, give me that refund, you know. And then to add this Ortega-Lopez fight. And honestly, I was with you with the Hill. I was a little worried to see come in, but Allberg, man, is nasty, dude.
Yeah.
Anthony Smith is the kind of guy that I will pick against him in this one, but he's going to show up and probably make me eat my words. That's the kind of guy
literally
that
to your face will tell you, I saw that you picked against me, sir.
Against me,
How about that?
And I love that. You know, I almost feel like, you know, like I'm setting him up to win because I'm going to pick against him and he's going to fucking show me up. This card is sick. I mean, like Gary and Paige fight, man. That was sick.
I love that fight.
I'm a little surprised that MBS and Chasson is still on the main card, and why Allberg. Well, I guess that's still on the main card. It's still. I mean, like I would think like the Swanson Feely would have been up there. I'm not sure why. Unless they're just trying to position MBS for, you know, title contention sort of deal.
Trying
or
to
something.
keep maybe try to keep one of them in position because you need to keep that women's bantamweight discussion. Maybe maybe it's just to keep the discussion going, to keep the division.
And that I can see. I mean, I applaud the UFC when they do their job of like keeping the women's MMA in the spotlight, because if they always just try to just put them down to the prelim, I can see at some point where people were like, well, how do you ever expect it to get you know, the attention it needs if you always put it down below? But there's just some big cards there's some big fights on this that I was a little surprised. That could be the feature prelim, and it would still get a lot of eyeballs on it. But good for them for
Swanson
keeping it up there.
or Pfeiffer, Marc-Andre Barriault, like either one of those.
And
I know Pfeiffer, Marc-Andre was on the main card. That's the one that got bumped down. Still not a bad spot though for Pfeiffer, right? Like, you know, I know Uriah Faber used to be a big one that really liked being on that featured prelim slot, right? Because less people are going to buy the pay-per-view than watch ESPN.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that. I know a lot of times, like my dad, for instance, he'll buy a couple pay-per-views a year, but he'll watch all the prelims because I already got ESPN. But he's like, I don't really want to spend my $70. You know what I mean? So more eyeballs will see it.
Was it $80?
It's 80. Is it 80 now? Yeah.
$79.99. That's nuts. There's I was hearing some people chattering the other day. I think there's an event coming up or soon. I think there's gonna be, what did they say, 3 pay-per-views in the span of like 6 weeks or something. At some point, if everything works out, that's nuts, dude.
That's a lot.
There's an event in Nolan saw it, and I kind of did my little due diligence. He saw on the upcoming, and now I'm getting way ahead of us, like in August, he saw on the commission the UFC is applying for an August like 24th, 25th, a Friday, Saturday
I just saw that
event. Fight night on the Saturday. It's going to be Road to the UFC on Friday. He was like, dude, you know what's going on with like this Friday? I was like, well, the only thing they've ever really done like that before is it's either an off-brand promotion or it's Road to the UFC.
Right.
So it's going to be Road to the UFC again.
That's funny. Yeah, that is just since you brought it up, that will be on the NSAC meeting on Tuesday. So if you're into commission meeting type things and looking at
there are a couple big things on there.
There are a couple big things on there. We'll get resolution, we believe, to the Arman Tsarukyan case, which, I mean, should be nothing.
Yeah. Why didn't they have it on the last one? Why did they push it back? Was it because they wanted to?
I think. Yeah, they want to make sure they're setting the right. It's that one and Igor Severino are the two.
I know Severino, and the people didn't see that on the last commission meeting when they decided on what they were going to do. And then I think when they want to have more chats about it, he made a plea during the end when it was just the public comments and when during the public comments the commission doesn't have to comment, doesn't have to debate, doesn't have to do anything. But in this particular situation, he asked and he said, "Hey, in a sense, like, I'm way behind on bills, way behind on all these other things. Can you please possibly release some of my purse to me?" And normally, a lot of times when the commissions happen, they might just be like, "Well, thank you. The public comment is now done." They actually said, "Please reach out to, so-and-so, the executive director, blah, blah, blah." So they were actually responding to the public comment, which normally doesn't happen. I thought that was nice of them to do that because they don't normally do that. So we're actually in this coming meeting next week or whatever, we're actually going to get the resolution and we're going to maybe hear if they've decided to release it, or they're just going to do one of these bulk things. Do we want to approve these, items, blah, 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 blah.
I think they'll go into it.
They should.
Yeah, they should. It was, I know with that one, I was trying to remember the details. On Tsarukyan, I don't think they had the full hearing yet, if I remember right, or they did, and they just didn't know what they want. I know with Severino, they had it ready to go, and it was athlete Marnell that was like, I don't know if we want to do this, because it was brought up that, like, well, the UFC released him anyway, and they're like, well, we can't base our issues on that, on what the UFC does, because they were like, well, what if somebody bites somebody in the future and it's not somebody that they're willing to let go? You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting with that. I'm actually interested in seeing the resolution on both.
Yeah, because I feel like these went on for months. Because I feel like the last one was already like when they were like we're supposed to have talked about it, and then they just agreed to extend it more.
Yeah, Severino's as I remember, because I was looking through my own notes to make sure that there wasn't a meeting in between. Because Severino's was done, and they were like ready to go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't gonna be much. It was gonna be like $3,000 or whatever, because he didn't make that much. What I mean? His entry level contract, and they were ready to go. And Marnell was like, "Hold on, before we approve this, like." We're saying, and they were asking, like, have we had other biting incidents? And they were like, well, the Tyson incident, but that was a whole different situation. They're like, okay, well, I don't know that we want to set this precedent that it's going to be this low if somebody bites, because what if it's in the future it's somebody that is a big star and that they're not going to release and they're going to. So I hope they don't throw. I mean, it was weird and dumb and terrible, and I know he's apologized for it. And I am very much a second chance kind of guy. Like, I just believe he lost his mind in the minute, and I think he can work his way back to the UFC at some point.
Definitely sympathetic, and I'm hoping that, like you said, it wasn't like it was a large amount anyways. I'm hoping that they're going to give him something, because he was already losing half of it anyways.
Yeah, and he's, I mean, the money outside the UFC
goes a lot further.
Yeah,
a lot further.
And with Tsarukyan, like, that's a tough one too, because they held a big portion of his purse. If I remember, it was like 58,000 or something like that. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but they held a big portion of his purse. But I do get it. Like, the fan was incredibly in the wrong, but you can't be swinging on the fans, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't have that happen.
Didn't we release numbers for one of those? Was that his? That was the 2,500, or was that the? No, that was Diego Lopez. His fine was 2,500 plus the 140 something legal fees. That's what that one was. So yeah, we didn't actually hear the number from the other one. I was like, man, I feel like they've just been dragging this on, but I know that was a long story of that started with a bunch of upcoming dates. But yeah, this commission things, I mean, they're interesting.
Tsarukyan had $31,600 withheld from his $158,000 purse.
That's a lot of change.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's not just chum change.
No, it's not.
You got Igor over there like, can I have some of his?
Like, I hate that. So yeah, anyway, that's Tuesday, June 20th. Since you brought up those dates, I wanted to mention that as well.
I mean, and if anybody's really, really if you're interested in that sort of stuff, the Athletic Commission puts their calendar out. If you go to the Nevada Athletic Commission, the website, you can look for the commission calendar. And the agenda, I think it just updated just a couple days ago, a few days ago. The agenda will get updated, and you can actually see all this stuff. Yep. This is not just insider stuff that we just happen to be because we're in Vegas. you could literally find all this stuff online. So if you're really, really diehard, which I know anybody listening to this is, and wants to, sort of get the heads up, that's kind of what we do. That's what Nolan King's really good about, because what you're able to see, you'll see when Zuffa or when boxing promotions are putting in requests for events in the future.
Because it's all public record.
It's all public record. So if
Yep.
you're like a real diehard and you're just like, I just want to be in the know, like literally, this is a tip for you, investigative type. You can literally get scoops before they go out because you're actually seeing when they're first making public record. Because at
Yep.
this point, those dates, nothing's listed. Nothing's out there in the public. They make the request. Once it's approved, then they can start actually making it official and putting it. So
There you go.
there's a tip for you.
Hey, speaking of things that are going to be public record, I know we've all been slammed and busy, but and just I'll credit now, John Nash is the guy that's been nailing this thing from the beginning and continues to. But you see the judge pushing back on the UFC antitrust settlement and saying that, like, I'm not certifying this. You guys are going to have to come tell me why these terms were acceptable because this looks like an awfully low settlement amount for how much you guys were asking for.
Interesting.
Yeah, so going to be interesting to see how that goes. So worth noting because I think we all kind of had the same reaction, like, what?
The judge can actually do that?
Yeah, and so they've got to come now. They've got to come justify for.
But didn't the parties agree to it?
The parties agree to it, but the judge has to agree to it as well. And he's like, you got to come tell me why this is fair because this doesn't seem like a fair resolution. And I think that's what we all thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, this seems awfully low. So just to let, if anybody hadn't seen that, I want to point out, and again, I'll credit John Nash because he remains the one that has been on top of this and is incredibly well versed in this. You and I certainly know legal experts.
No.
But yes,
That's
both
just mind-boggling.
sides agreed to it. But the judge said, I'm not sure I agree to this. We need to have another hearing so that you guys can tell me why this is an acceptable term.
So they just have to sort of defend their positions because it's weird. You see plea deals and other stuff in criminal cases, like with the prosecuting and defense teams coming to terms, and the judge accepts it. That's just kind of a formality at this point.
You would think so. And again, I have no idea how often this happens in antitrust law, and maybe it's just like it seemed from the discussions that I was reading that this isn't a mere formality, that this is like an actual added hearing that they weren't expecting to have.
Yeah.
But it is weird too because then what happens if the judge goes, no, I don't like this, and then what if the plaintiffs
I want
are
the
like,
lawyers to get more money than what they're getting.
exactly right. Then what if the plaintiffs are like, nah, man, we don't have any desire to keep fighting this fight anymore.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you go to trial with a team that's like, nah, we're just not into this anymore? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Are like, we were hoping to get $300 million, Judge. We want to go back for that $1 billion. We want $1 billion so I can get $500 million, and the fighters could still only get $150 million.
So crazy.
Conor's like, please, yes, go back. I want my double.
I agree. This settlement, it is clear how wronged I have been in here. Do you know what financial hardships I've been forced to deal with?
He's like, if I was only going to get $10 million, I don't know how I would survive.
That's amazing. All right, let's talk about, we do have the UFC in Saudi Arabia this week. I guess if you're looking for on-site coverage, our man Hot T is over there, so check out Oscar Wills to see what he's doing in between baking in the sun.
Maybe he'll put out some videos. I know he's in the gym. He's getting that work in.
Come over here, bro. Let me get that knife out of your back, too, bro. I got you.
It's all love.
Don't worry, Hot T. I got you. Come over here real quick. Let me grab that knife. This dude's just throwing daggers into everybody's back. All right, well, so listen, obviously, the Khamzat Chimaev story is going to continue going on here.
Yeah.
Whew, man.
What they say it was? Food poisoning?
Food poisoning, and then when they say food poisoning, it makes it sound like, and I saw a lot of people going like, "Oh, he had a tummy ache, did he?" I mean, there could be some really serious issues.
Yeah, I
with
mean,
food
say like
people die from it,
like norovirus and other ones where like you have severe diarrhea and you're really like shit's serious.
Bad. Yeah. So we'll wait to hear. I mean, look, I am worried about his long-term.
I feel like
health.
He's had multiple issues.
A lot. And so I mean, his skills are immense, and he's fun but you worry, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he'll ever be able to fulfill that potential that we thought was there. So that's something that we'll continue to monitor. But what are your thoughts on the fight itself? Because, I mean, I've already said it. I won't say it again. And the guy doesn't need it anyway. Robert Whittaker is an absolute G to just say, the scary dude. We talked earlier about, fights there's no upside. For Robert Whittaker, this is an unranked opponent.
Yeah.
Who most people have never heard of. Probably can't pronounce his name. You know what I mean? Don't even know what it's about. So I don't know that it's going to get you a number one contender fight or a title fight, especially with all that's going on in that division right now.
Yep.
But Robert Whittaker is just a gangster who's like, if that's the fight you want from me, I'll take that fight.
Total gangster. I mean, they
Stud.
brought this guy in to represent that area of the world. You know, they wanted, I imagine, a Muslim fighter that they could just hang their hat on,
100%.
like beat whatever for nationality. They would. I'm sure they'd love it if it was a U.S. fighter. They're going to be happy if he can beat an Australian fighter. They'd be happy from whatever. There was a particular reason for it. I mean, and it's all downside. It's all danger for Whittaker on this. I still believe with the experience of who Robert has fought that will carry him in this.
I agree. I think this is and this is what sucks. It's because Robert Whittaker can go out there and be Robert Whittaker and win this fight. And I think people will be like, see, that Alaskarov guy wasn't that good. No, this Alaskarov is
scary,
really good. I just think Whittaker is a cut above for him in his career right now. Alaskarov can catch you. He's got nasty power, but he's a little bit wild compared to the way Whittaker throws. Alaskarov does have great wrestling. I don't think his chain wrestling is as scary as Hamzat's is. You know what I mean? And I think Whittaker has really good takedown defense. So I mean,
if it wasn't Whittaker, I'd be a lot more worried for somebody else taking this fight.
So you took Whittaker in here?
I did take Whittaker, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't considering
100%.
Taking Alaskarov.
100%. And it just goes to show, like I said, that it's all downside for Whittaker, because if he wins, you're going to be like, well, yeah, he beat the unranked guy that wasn't ready for him yet. Blah, blah, blah. No, this dude is dangerous.
Yeah, and if Alaskarov can get the win, I mean, this is going to push him. This immediately pushes him up into, contender range. I mean, and that whole side of the world just wants more stars, because if you're going to almost have to take Hamzat off the playing field because of whatever health issues, they need a star to step up from that area, or just that will resonate in that market, especially if we're going to be going to Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi and all these other parts of the world more often. We're going to be seeing more fighters that fit that mold.
100%.
So I was interested to see him fight here, and when we started getting the murmurings during the week that, hey, this fight wouldn't, because I wanted to see him in person, I wanted to see him fighting, and I knew that was going to be a challenging fight for him, but I was going to pick him in that fight. But then to see him now fighting a main event against Whittaker,
pretty incredible.
It's huge.
What was, by the way, I didn't get a chance because I was traveling and I was getting ready for those two events. So do you guys talk to Trocoli? I mean, I know it was about like, hey, I might have a fight, I might not. Is that?
Well, no, he never. At that point, they were still like, oh no, he's still going to be coming. Okay. So I don't think if he knew that it was first. If he knew that it was potentially off, but Alaskarov was scheduled before him.
Mm-hmm.
But
so when you talk to him, you just talk to him like the fight was on.
Like the fight was happening.
Okay.
If he knew that the fight wasn't happening, he didn't let on.
He's the world's greatest actor.
Because, one, and it's like we didn't really know. It was all just speculation. So, one, I didn't bring up and say, hey, have you seen the rumors that your fight might get pulled?
Yeah.
Because it was just too wishy-washy.
Yeah, it wasn't like good reports.
It wasn't,
at that point.
Because then at that point, I could just see somebody like, well, that was stupid. You're asking a fighter about a rumor.
Sorry.
Because at that point, we were getting nothing from the UFC. Even at the very, very end, when everybody else had went and he was the only person that didn't, they just came out and were like, very unceremoniously, were just like, well, that's it. That's it, and take it as you will.
Ikram had to catch a flight to Saudi Arabia. Not saying anything, but
and then immediately. So that's when I put the thing out. I put the tweet out and said like, hey, this is not here. I was expect from Dana.
Yeah.
And literally, I think it was 30 minutes later. So
that's funny.
I'm sure that they knew that they probably put the poker under Dana. I'm like, Dana, well, if the media day is about to end, people are going to start speculating.
So we should probably get something out ASAP.
Get something out, So we kind of figured that something, but this is a huge step up for him. Whittaker. If it wasn't Whittaker, I'd be a lot more worried about somebody else taking the short notice, just for the fact of, Farah Hunoon, which I respect, and I know you respect a lot. She scouts a lot of these fighters from other parts of the world that I don't normally pay attention to, and she's been high on this kid forever.
Yep.
So when I knew that she was been talking about him, I was like, okay, this dude's the legit real deal. And that's why I was so excited to sort of see him there at the Apex, to see how he was, because I knew she'd been talking him up. The only difference and why I'm not leaning on this is just because of the experience of Whittaker and everything that he's been. People, I mean, even if he tries to say, like you were saying, like he does get wild and he wants to try to come forward and get him to engage, in some slobber knocker in the middle. Whitaker's not going to do that. He's
Right.
too darn smart.
Yep.
He's not going to be goaded into somebody else's fight. So I picked Whitaker.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. But yeah, I feel gutted for that Trocoli, man. He'd been trying to get a fight forever, and it was just he was so excited, and he was so happy to get that fight, and you could see the. And I think I almost made him cry because I was just talking about like what the fight meant for him to finally get in there and fight for the UFC, and the dude got all emotional, and then the fight's taken away.
Oh, God.
Bro, I was like, ouch.
Poor guy.
You know, so I
Sure,
felt
they'll get him taken care of.
I
but-
felt real bad, but then I heard that I think he's either married or he's dating Mackenzie Dern, so I think he's okay. I didn't feel so bad for him after that. I was like, he's okay. He's okay.
great.
He's gonna go back and somebody's gonna console him, and he's gonna be like, I'll live
fine.
another day.
Oh,
I'll
well.
live another day.
That's funny. That's a funny way to look at it. All right, I'm with you on that one. I like Whitaker in the main. I think it's a stern test. Sergey Pavlovich versus Alexander Volkov. Interesting clash of body types at heavyweight. What was your pick, and did you make it before or after you saw Sergey posing for his photos in Saudi Arabia?
Dude, but we've seen. I mean, that guy's been a specimen.
How does he
for-
look like more of a tank now, though,
Dude.
dude? Like the
Why-
dude was already a tank.
If it wasn't, I think that Aspinall fight, I think changed him a little bit. I think he was thinking like, I will just walk over everybody. I will bulldoze over everybody. Nobody can take my power, and nobody has the power to knock me out.
Yep.
And then he ran into Aspinall, and Aspinall was like, "Sorry, sir.
Yep.
You're almost there. You're almost there." And I think he just went down and probably just doubled down on himself. But yeah, he looks.
Those dudes are gonna fight again someday
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
for a belt.
I think for a belt,
Yep.
and I'm not just going to jump on Aspinall just because Aspinall beat him the first time.
I
I
agree.
probably would lean back on Pavlovich again.
That dude is scary.
He is, but man, I will give Aspinall all the props in the world, man, for what
Aspinall's
he
a
was
man.
able to do, man. That was like, I picked against him, and I was like, there's no way Aspinall's not ready for this power, and he was just like, sit down, Kenny. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Watch this. Hold my beer.
Amazing, man. Yeah.
But yeah, I picked Pavlovich in that. I mean, Volkov's a G. He's a nice guy, man. We see him around all the time. He's a good teammate. He's been around the scene for a while. But man, yeah, that's gonna be some good Russian on Russian violence.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if this thing, the longer this thing goes, obviously you would expect Volkov to, have more of an advantage. But I just don't know, man. Because Volkov, you would assume is going to look to wrestle. That's
You don't want to stand. in that.
that's why I'm so like, okay, for Volkov, right?
We've seen what's happened before when he's tried to stand and bang with one of these big guys.
That's it. So here you are. You're this towering giant, and normally you would say, bro, you're facing the much shorter guy. Like, hey, man, just stick your jab, use your front kick, stay at range, keep him at distance. But like, no, you know. So then you're like, okay, well then what you need to do is wrestle. So like, oh, you mean so I have to get like really close to him? Like, so I like Volkov a lot, but this just seems like a really tough match.
I mean that is the big. I mean he's if he. I feel like. I mean, how can you say anything because you're like nobody's going to stand with Sergey, but people have done it. But yeah, I mean it's smart for him to try to get the fight to the ground. Use those big, long, lanky legs. If he can weather a punch and get in there and grab a hold of him. Because, yeah, I don't want to stand at distance. And, I mean, like, it's not like Volkov's like this dude that's just peppering. Like, people are like, man, his boxing, he's got to be the number 2 boxer in MMA. Like, he's not. He's not that guy, So, like, I would think try to use his best aspects and his best things. And I think if there's any possible questions of where Sergey's lacking, I think if you get a big guy like Volkov to wrap him up, get him on the ground, maybe he has a chance. But Sergey's kind of like with like a Derek, man. He's got that explosive power, and he's just so big that he can just explode off the ground. So when you get him on the ground, can you keep him on the ground?
That's it.
So it'd be interesting, but Volkov's a dog, man. I hate to just say that he has no chance. I am leaning heavily in Pavlovich, but Volkov. I mean, he's an experienced vet. He trains in there with big guys, and he's a big dude. 80-inch reach, man. What is Pavlovich's reach? It's got to be right around there. 80 is huge. 80. Oh my God, it's longer.
How is that possible? I see 84 is the listed reach for Sergey.
It's 4 inches longer than how I don't. It doesn't. That's not possible.
Wow.
So I see your reach, sir, and I will up it by 4 inches.
Yeah, we're
That's
just
crazy.
Yeah, if Volkov can just stay outside of the reach of oh
Yeah,
man, that's crazy.
on paper, it's not a pretty. But he's got to get him on the ground. I think if he has any chance, he's got to tie him on the ground, use those big long legs, try to
I would think so
time
too.
into something. But man, it's gonna be dangerous. That's a tough fight. But it's gonna be a good fight though. I mean, it's a good fight.
Great fight. Fun fights on the card. Kelvin Gastelum, D-Rod. Obviously, that's an intriguing matchup for guys that have gone through some rough spots that we know of very well. So the big one there. Shara Magomedov, Shara Bullet against Jolton Luderbach, who is a newcomer to the UFC, but if you watch the world scene, this dude fights like every week. Like he MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, karate combat. Like the dude just fights a ton. So that should be an absolutely very fun one. Obviously Johnny Walker and Volkan Oezdemir in there and well in a meaningful fight. So nice main card and I can't say enough. I love the start time for us here in Las Vegas. 9 a.m. for the prelims, noon for the main card.
It's always interesting. They got big Gastelum and little Gastelum.
I know when they're on the same card, you gotta love it. Gotta love it. Nasrat Haqparast on there against Jared Gordon. So Muhammad Naimov is in there, who I saw come up through Tough Enough. So love seeing that. Nicholas Dalby is back against Renat Fakhretdinov. I love that one.
I love that one.
Kyung Ho Kang and Muin Gafar. There's some really good fights.
It's a good card. It is a good card. So
we will have the return of the and a half this week, of course, as well. I appreciate everybody understanding over at patreon.com/DMA Roadshow of the 1 week hiatus. Still need to figure out a long-term solution for everything, but I appreciate it. It made my life a hell of a lot easier on this past weekend and Father's Day.
And we've heard the response. Nobody wants nudes.
No, yes, thank you, loud and clear. That has been sent to us.
We've taken it off the board.
We've had multiple responses.
We've taken it off the board.
Yeah, that is not an applicable solution. Please look at something different. So, all right, listen, you're gonna have the two screens set up going on for Bellator will be on simultaneously from Dublin. That is, for the record, 12 p.m. Eastern on Max. Jason Jackson, Ramazan Kurmagomedov in the main event for the title. I'll tell you the one that jumps out at me on that one that I'm really excited about, Norbert Novenyi and Dalton Rosta, man.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised. I guess
back and forth on that one.
It's in Dublin, so I'm assuming that's why you have Paul Hughes and Sinead Cabot. Like, to me, Novenyi and Rosta, that should be the co-main event, if I'm being honest. At least in my terms, my interest. And no disrespect to Paul Hughes or Sinead Kavanaugh or their opponents, Bobby King, Arlene Blank. I'm pumped up for that one. Anything on that card else that's jumping out to you?
Those are the main ones.
Those are the ones, right?
Yeah, those are the main ones for sure.
Yep, completely agree. I'm excited for that one. So that is 12 p.m. Eastern on Max. Shout out to the crew at PFL and Bellator. Like I said, man, they've got simultaneous events going on 2 different continents. They also, the night before, on Friday night, that the PFL is in Salt Lake City. They've got the light heavyweights and the heavyweights up for grabs.
It's a good card, too.
Good card, too.
It's
Clay
really
Collard,
good.
Mads Burnell in the main event is really, really good. Dude, okay. I know they've taken a lot of criticism for the way they match things up in the second round of the regular season, and I do get it. I understand some of it looks like a little bit hand-done at times. This one had me scratching my head a little bit. They got Rob Wilkinson and Josh Silveira going against each other. That's number 1 and number 2. I don't know. I was a little surprised at that match. I'll go back to Danny Rubenstein because I remember he was the one I think that first tweeted. I don't know how you could do it, but I do wish you just knew both matchups maybe off the top. I don't know what the right way to do that would be, but just to eliminate, maybe you do like a random draw like the way they do like draft picks or something like that. I wish there was, if it is, no politics, no matchmaking, it's pure, this is what seasons do. I wish there was a more transparent way of just saying, here's how we came up with this. Because it does seem like there's been some situations where there have been some kind of favorable. This one was kind of weird. Like I saw Rob Wilkinson and Josh Silveira. That's 1 versus 2. Sadibou C and Tom Breeze is shockingly 9 versus 10. They're both in last place, actually. So I don't know. I don't know if it should be, 1 fights 10. just because that's odd. Like maybe that's the way to do it. I'm not sure what the right solution is.
It sucks because you want to see 1 versus 2 in the finals or somebody further along. It's just the fact that it's meeting up so early. Like I guess it's probably not early but meeting up in the regular season. You're knocking one guy or potential of knocking one guy potentially out of the finals race. You know, and it's two stars. I mean, like two guys that I think you could really sort of like, hang the PFL banner on, and it's like, this is our guy.
That's why I was a little surprised to see they put this one together.
It's always tough.
What do you think? What do you think it should be? Should it be? The names, or you? Or
I like the idea of knowing the names and then just having something completely randomized, like take human elements out of it, flip a coin, something like if you know that there's a potential pool of the people. I get it, like if people have earned a right maybe from the year prior or something to where they can enter the pool, and then some process kicks off to where you can get it. It's where if you then see
like Champions League draw, where they have like different. Because now I'm thinking, do you have like a winner's pot and a loser's pot?
That would would be good.
A winner faces a loser, or what I mean?
Whereas the loser has the potential to get themselves back into it by beating like a winner or something like that. That would be good.
Maybe that's what. But you take the 10 names, 5 of them are winners, 5 of them are losers. If you end up with a draw, I don't know how the hell you fix
lose,
that.
But then they go into a different bracket that can then come back up into the
if they
bracket.
Like you draw a winner versus a loser. If it was a matchup that already happened, if that was the matchup you draw, you like I said, slide them down to the next one, or you know what I mean, like. And then, dude, that's honestly like that's compelling content.
Yeah.
During their break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they're trying to keep, because that's the big struggle with PFL, right? Is that you have 3 consecutive weeks, and then you got a couple months off, and then you got 3 consecutive weeks, and so how do you keep the storylines going? That kind of draw situation could maybe be cool.
And like you said, I mean, like when somebody's laying down, I'm not sure what the process is, how they do the initial bracketing.
Right.
But if it is just purely like somebody saying like, I'm just going to put this guy here, there's some sort of reason, and it just sets up the fact where, it's hard to not think that there's a human factor in why they pick the matchups that they do. You almost want it to just be completely randomized where, well, it sucks, that this sort of happened. It'd be cool if they just had maybe one of those big lottery ball machines, and they just make a whole show where they actually, pull the balls out of the machine and say, here's this spot, here's this spot.
I think it would be compelling to watch, and not only would it be compelling to watch, but then it takes out any potential criticism that people have, and I know they do. I've seen it. The loudest. Has been Dakota Ditcheva. I saw a lot of people were griping about that bracket this season the most. You look at like Liz Carmouche to make it into the finals. She's got Juliana Velasquez and Kana Watanabe. Like that's insane. Versus and Dakota Ditcheva looks like a star, but it doesn't seem like
fighting
seems like
relatively unknown.
Seems like they got her the easier path in there. So if you're going to tell me, John, it just worked out that way. I promise we didn't. Okay, I'll believe you. Let us see it.
Yeah.
Let us see the process.
Let us see the process.
And again, I don't mean that as a horrible criticism of them. Like, no, I mean that's what every other league on the planet does. That's what every other organization does. So it's not like I'm pissed at them, but it's just like if you're going to say it's random and there's none of this involved, and let's just make it that way.
Process. Yep.
Show us the process.
It would be interesting.
It would
be interesting. Maybe some transparency. I mean, just because then when you get matchups like this where people are like, man, why would they ever pit 1 and 2 so early, or why would they put their 2 stars? It's like, well, it wasn't their doing.
Yeah, it just the draw, and that makes it exciting, right? Yeah. Oh my God, 1 versus 2 just got drawn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you can't blame anybody but the random process
because it's just chance.
It's just the way it goes. So
I bet we could suggest it.
Because
then they can make a whole show about it. They can literally have a 2-hour show leading up to it.
100%.
Like the NFL draft, make a 2-day thing.
I'm gonna pitch them on it.
Do it.
And you know what? And you need somebody to host it. So
there you go.
It's my idea. I'll host it too. How about that?
I like it.
I guess last things last. The Ultimate Fighter 32. No, if everybody's catching up on it, I just want to give a shout out.
I need to catch up.
I'm staying up with it.
I'm starting to drift.
I watch it with my kid, and we sit down like dinner time or whatever, and just watch it because it comes out like 7 p.m. Pacific or whatever. So we basically just come home from jiu-jitsu and sit down and watch it. But
that's nice.
Con Offley won a decision this past weekend over Nathan Fletcher. And I just want to give a shout out because I actually got to call one of his fights over in Belgium, so it's cool.
So what's the tally at coaches' records?
Good question. I don't know. I don't
have to look and see. But so I know that Val had the first one, so I didn't know who won the last one.
I can't, because this was a Team Grasso member, but I can't remember. So it's 2-1 one way or the other, but I can't remember what team it was. Yeah, I can't remember now. I'm not good at remembering who's on what team.
Yeah, that's
all. I kind of just remember the fights.
Yeah. No, I need to. And it's funny because
the score is 2-1. Just can't tell you which way. to answer your question, sir, it's 2-1 right now. Really? Who's winning? And we move on.
Good enough. Good enough.
All right, listen, I gotta head out of here. Got a couple things to do, and yeah. What are you going to do? Saturday morning? You getting up early? What's the plans for taking it in?
Yeah, well, my niece is coming in town this evening. Yeah,
coming up.
Sunday is my birthday. So Saturday I will probably
oh, wait a minute. So there's birthday celebration on Friday.
Friday.
Are we going to be let's ask about your birthday weekend plans. Considering we have a 9 a.m. start time on Saturday, will it be a painful 9 a.m. as we wake up in the morning, or because we're more of a swole coffee now?
Well, no, I mean, I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna have some fun. But I mean, the get together that I'm doing on Friday, it's like 7 to 10, so I'm not gonna be too crazy.
Right.
I might have the niece drive me home if I get a little bit, but I'm not gonna go too crazy. I'm actually probably not gonna just go too crazy because of that. But I'm definitely gonna have some drinks.
Because your niece is there, or because?
Well, just because I haven't let loose in a while. I figured, why not? It's my birthday. I'll have a few drinks, whatever.
You don't have to go crazy.
I'm not gonna go crazy though. I'm getting old.
It's a big.
I'm getting old. I'm farting dust these days, dude. It hurts. When I get
we were young, bro. We used to go hard, and then we'd just be like popping up at media day the next day, like let's roll.
Like when I go hard drinking now, I feel it for like 2 days. I feel like it throws the whole like. Well, I'm glad you've been working out. This month's wasted. Like when I get wasted now. But plus I'm a cheap date now, man. I drink. I get a little buzzed a little quicker nowadays, I think. But
there's positives.
Well, yeah, but it could be because when I start doing it, I'm like, well, let me get a shot. Let me get a beer with that. Let me get another shot. I'm like, I probably
2 shots.
I think that's probably why I think I'm more like less whatever.
Right.
But it's probably because I just fucking think I'm still right in the swing, and then I try to just drink like I normally do, and it just doesn't work out well. But so yeah, no, I'm not gonna go too hard because I want to get up in the morning. I plan on there's a nice little brunch spot. I was thinking about going to catch brunch, so maybe we'll go catch brunch and then just start the fights at 9 or something.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I love morning fights, so yeah, I'll definitely plan on getting up and watching them. So yeah, I'm not gonna go too crazy, but yeah, turn the big 5-0 on Sunday.
Ooh, I didn't know it was that one.
It's the big one.
Ooh.
I'm not senior citizen yet, but I feel fucking senior citizen sometimes. But yeah, it's a big one. That's why because I didn't know if my family was gonna come out or whatever. And then my niece reached out. It's funny. My mom's like, well, if you want to come out here and visit us, we can go to dinner or whatever. I was like, Mom, you live in the middle of fucking nowhere, Tennessee. I was like, if I'm going to do anything for a birthday, I think I'll stay
down
in Vegas.
To the Catfish Kitchen down there.
Let's go eat at one of the 2 places that are there in your neck of the woods. So my niece was like, I'll come out. And so I was like, dude, I love it. So I love it anytime my family can come out. So,
that's cool.
And now she's old enough that she could drink shit. I think she's like 26 now or something.
Right.
So I'm like, cool, we could actually go to bars,
Go hang out.
Before, when like they're too little, it's like, well, let's go get ice cream or something. Now we're like, we go get fucking drinks or whatever.
Show the local side of Vegas, which is always fun.
That's what I'm looking forward to, because normally we have a bunch more family, so now it's just going to be her, so we actually can kind of kick it, and I can take her to some other little fun little spots. So I'm actually worked it out. I'm going to get her a tour of the UFC. I think I'm going to either get her through the HQ or like the Apex, because she actually likes UFC stuff. She loves the road.
She's always
pumping our podcast, so it's so cool.
Let's go.
So I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm gonna take you.
I think
I'm gonna get you a tour. She's like, I might scream. I'm like, I love that.
It's cool, man. The first time you see that facility, like if you're a fan, like it's mind blowing.
Yeah. So I get to be the cool uncle this week. So
that's awesome.
I'm stoked about it.
We'll pass on all the birthday celebrations. I'll see you on Friday night. We'll have a couple cocktails and celebrate. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
I might go a little harder with them.
Well, there's always Uber. If I have to leave my car there, I will leave my car there, and I will just go pick it up the next day.
Always Uber. I definitely do that. All right. Listen, we'll have the return of the and a half this week, so appreciate everybody for your patience once again at patreon.com/MMA Roadshow. For everybody else, appreciate you. Appreciate you. Give some ratings, feedback, all those things if you can. That always helps. But if not, we just appreciate you. Thanks for listening.